Hello and welcome back to Emily Cat 176. So it is Wednesday, and Wednesday is meaning poetry. So if you are interested in poetry, please watch, because every week I am reading out poems from all these different poets. And as I said in another video, poetry in particular, I think, shows a true love of language. So, today's poem, The Listeners. "Is there anybody there?" said the traveller, knocking on the moonlit door. And his horse in the silence champed the grasses of the forest's ferny floor. And a bird flew up out of the turret above the traveller's head, and he smote upon the door again a second time. "Is there anybody there?" he said. But no one descended to the traveller. No head from the leaf-fringed sill leaned over and looked into his grey eyes, where he stood perplexed and still, but only a host of phantom listeners that dwelt in the lone house then stood listening in the quiet of the moonlight. To that voice from the world of men stood thronging the faint moonbeams on the dark stair that goes down to the empty hall, hearkening in an air stirred and shaken by the lonely traveller's call. And he felt in his heart their strangeness. Their stillness answering his cry, while his horse moved cropping the dark turf near the starred and leafy sky. For he suddenly smote on the door even louder and lifted his head. "Tell them I came," and no one answered, "that I kept my word," he said. Nevertheless, stir made the listeners, though every word he spake fell echoing through the shadowness of the still house. From the one man left awake, aye, they heard his foot upon the stirrup, and the sound of iron on stone, and how the silence surged softly backward when the plunging hooves were gone. The Listeners by Walter de la Mare. Sorry, it's my Australian accent. I'm not good at it. That is such a good poem. That is such a good poem. And there's a real atmosphere about it. And I think all of us have done it too. You go into an empty house and there's a feeling there, there's a stillness there. And this is what this traveller has done. He's come across an empty house and he goes inside and he's wanting someone to answer him. He's a lone traveller and he's gone into an empty house. So there are issues of isolation, definitely of isolation, of loneliness. There's also a feeling of it that we don't really fully understand the world. And he's come, this lone traveller, he has come to this empty house, but he still thinks someone will answer him. Or maybe, being a lone traveller, he's craving an answering voice. It's very interesting. But there's definitely, as I said, the phantom listeners in the quiet of the moonlight. I just think the empty hall by the lonely traveller's call. And this, of course, it's also, that expression, there is a very big difference between being alone and being lonely. very big difference. And I think with this poem, and part of the atmosphere is that he's on his own and there's isolation, and he is actually craving an answering voice. Very good. Very, very good. Oh, sorry about that. Apologies. I realised I didn't have any information actually about the poet, which I always like to give as well. So, Walter de la Mare, 1873 to 1956. He was English, and he was quite, when you look him up, he was quite a varied writer. In 1921, he won the James Tate Black Memorial Prize for Fiction, and in 1947 he won the Carnegie Medal for British children's books. So he was quite a varied writer. Oh, I've got to get my glasses fixed. But this one in particular, apparently this is one of his better known plays. And how I know about him is I was talking to an older lady last week, and she was saying that they used to look at his poetry at school. And again, I said, oh, I don't know who that is. So I looked him up, and I looked at this one, and I just think it's just so good. I said, in every line there's this oppressive feeling, I think, of isolation and loneliness. And we as humans, we're social beings. I have to admit, I'm probably more social than most people. I love meeting people, new people, and whenever I go to a show, I'm the one talking to all around me. But again, it's back to that alone versus lonely. And the traveller definitely in this is lonely. He approaches the house, he knows it's empty, but he still goes in and asks, is anyone there? Just, oh, so good. I think so good. And I like the line, but only a host of phantom listeners. Isn't that a good line? And this is the other thing with poetry too. Poets have to be careful with every word. Every word they put in a poem has to be the right one for that sentence. And this is why I think with poetry that I said there's a real love of language. Just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful, I think. So that is the poet, Walter de la Mare. I've got to try and get my accents up, haven't I? I will be back on Friday. Again, I must ask, because there are a lot of people who are looking at this site that aren't subscribed. If you are liking what you're seeing, please think about subscribing. Okay, so I will be back on Friday. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you then. Bye.